It's really with us now more than ever. However, there's two schools of thought, two trends. Again, talking to one of our colleagues this morning, we were just saying that it's all about the people. It's what the people want, and I think there is a trend towards spaceless growth. There's a space towards less occupation. There's a space away perhaps from everybody having their desk, but one company may be doing that and one company may be doing the reverse.
We, Argent, as a relatively small business, we occupy our 10,000 square feet. We've just moved to agile working in the last 6 months. Our building actually feels more empty. It feels like we've got more space than we had before, and yet we've actually got more people in the building. Not everybody's immediately happy, but actually it works extremely well. It's working extremely well, much better than it's been less challenging than we thought it was going to be, actually. And I think that's going to give us a life in our space of probably several years longer than we actually thought it might have done.
So the phrase that we've kind of centred everything around is the concept of agility. And agility, of course, has a kind of virtuous interpretation. Hot desking has quite the opposite, as we were talking about earlier on. To understand what our value proposition is for talent is the critical issue for us right now. So we absolutely have tried to understand not only how do we use the space in the most economically efficient way, but how do we create a space which is different, that is vibrant, that is innovative, that gives people the opportunity to do different things.
I think there are probably some issues here about people aspiring to adopt agile working, spaceless growth, call it what you will, in buildings which actually aren't fit for purpose for it. If they move, it's all very well. So I think there are some people where, and I know speaking to my property management colleagues, they are finding on some of the bigger multi-let buildings in London that they're starting to creak because of what people are trying to do in buildings that weren't designed.
So a backlash is brewing?
I wouldn't necessarily a backlash, but I think a realisation that you can't just do it on your own as an occupier, particularly if you're in a multi-let environment or in a building that's not fit for purpose.
But we have to rethink how London works, and building multi-level is one of those solutions. But all manner of things around, you place an order, you'd like it in 4 hours, you'd like it in an hour if it's Amazon Prime. Well, how is London going to operate with that sort of requirement? You're going to have smaller hubs with more intensity of use deliveries, but in a very sustainable way. We can see a time when it's ridiculous at the moment that there's lots and lots of white vans flying around London half empty. There's a huge challenge to how companies need to collaborate, need to drive efficiencies through their supply chain. You look at the mixed-use developments happening, the days of a monochrome use in these areas, be they residential or office, they need to change.
John, there is some resistance to that, isn't there? The bigger developers don't always like residential in the same building as office.
I think there is, but I think that's an institutional investment, conservative, stable, driven force. I think actually a lot of people, mixed use is much more acceptable now than it was 15 years ago. And I don't think that scares developers to the extent that it used to.
There's this interesting example, the Industry City in Brooklyn, which is 6 million square feet of industrial, large industrial buildings which have been kind of abandoned for 20 years, and it's now being transformed very, very top-down, sort of developer-wise, into an amazing sort of manufacturing, working, and creative and knowledge industries hub, and it's very much based around the idea of creating employment for the people who actually live very close by. So there's a lot of, and I think this is really important in terms of placemaking in the city, that is not just creating new places that you want people to commute to, but actually creating the mix, and in terms of industrial buildings, retaining some of the manufacturing.
From an investor perspective, though, we look at things and think that there are differing rates of obsolescence, both in technology and also in the sectors, I suppose. So when you have a building which combines a number of different uses, the requirements within that building and from those users varies over time. And if you need to change one element or two elements within that building, it's very difficult, and I suppose it comes back to the original antipathy towards residential going inside on top of office buildings.